Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. Mildred D. Taylor. Chapter 10, Part 1. How does it look? Asked Papa as I passed through the sitting room on my way out the side door. Over a week had passed since he had been injured, and this was his first morning up. He was seated by the cold fireplace, his head still bandaged, his broken leg resting on a wooden chair. His eyes were on Mama at her desk. Mama put down her pencil and frowned at the open ledger before her. She glanced at me absently and waited until I had closed the door behind me. Then she said, "David, do you think we should go into this now? You're still not well." "I'm well enough to know that there's not much left. Now tell me." I hopped down the steps and sat at the bottom one. Mama was silent for a moment before she answered him. "Well, with Hammer's half of the mortgage money, we've got enough to meet the June payment." "Nothing more?" "A couple dollars, but that's all." They were both silent. "You think we should write Hammer and borrow some money?" Mama asked. Papa did not answer right away. "No," he said finally. "I still don't want him to know about this thing. If he knows I'm not on the railroad, he'll want to know why not. And I don't want to risk that temper of his when he finds out what the Wallaces done." Mama sighed. "Well, I guess you're right." "I know I am," said Papa. Things like they are, he come down here wild and angry. He'll get himself home. Long as things don't get no worse, we can make it without him. We'll meet that June note with the money we got." He paused a moment. "We'll probably have to sell a couple of the cows and their calves to make them July and August notes, maybe even that old sow. But by the end of August, we should have enough cotton to make the September payment, because we'll probably have to go all the way to Vicksburg to get it ginned. Can't hardly see Harlan Granger's gin this year." There was quite a silence again. Then Mama said, "David, Mama's been talking about going to Strawberry to the market next." "No," Papa said, not letting her finish her sentence. "Too much bad feeling there." "I told her that." "I'll talk to her. Anything we just gotta have before the first cotton come in?" "Well, you picked up batteries and kerosene on that last trip. But what we're going to need more than anything is some insecticide to spray the cotton. The bugs are getting pretty bad." "What about food?" "Our flour and sugar and baking powder and such are low, but we'll make it. We don't have to have biscuits and cornbread every day. We're out of pepper and there's not much salt. But we don't just have to have those either. And the coffee's all gone. The garden's coming along nicely, though. There's no worry there." "No worry," Papa muttered as both of them grew quiet. Then suddenly there was a sharp explosion as if something had been struck with an angry force. If only this leg wasn't busted." "Don't let Stacy hear you saying that, David," Mama cautioned softly. "You know he blames himself about your leg." "I told that boy it wasn't his fault. He just wasn't strong enough to hold Jack." "I know, but he still blames himself." Papa laughed strangely. "Ain't this something? Them Wallaces aim a gun in my head and I get my leg broke and my boy's blaming himself. Why, I feel like taking a bullwhip to all three of them. All three of them Wallaces, and not stopping till my arm gets so tired I can't raise it now one more time." "You're sounding like Hammer."
"Oh, am I? Well, a lot of times I feel like doing things Hammer's way. I think I'd get a powerful lot of satisfaction from whipping Caleb Wallace and busting them brothers of his."
"Hammer's way would get you killed and you know it. So stop talking like that. Don't we already have enough to worry about? Besides, both Thurston and Dewberry Wallace are still laid up, so I hear. Some folks even say that Dewberry's back is broken. In any case, Mr. Morrison must have hurt them pretty badly."
"Where is he, by the way? I haven't seen him this morning." There was an instant silence before Mama answered. Out looking for work again since dawn. He ain't gonna find nothing around here. I told him that. I know, agreed, agreed Mama. But he says he's got to try. David, Mama stopped, and when she spoke again, her voice had grown faint, as if she hesitated to say what was on her mind. David, don't you think he ought to go? I don't want him to, but after what he did to those Wallaces, I'm afraid for him. He knows what could happen, Mary, but if he wants to stay, and frankly, we need him here, don't pester him about it. But David, if... Before Mama finished, I spied Mr. Morrison coming west from Smelling's Creek. I left the step and hurried to meet him. Hello, Mr. Morrison, I shouted as Jack pulled the wagon up the drive. Hello, Casey, Mr. Morrison greeted me. Your papa awake? Yes, sir. He's sitting out of the bed this morning. Didn't I tell you nothing could keep him down? Yes, sir, you did. He stepped down from the wagon and walked all the way toward the house. Mr. Morrison, you want me to unhitch Jack for you? No, Cassie. Leave him be. I gotta talk to your papa, then I'll be right back. Hey, old Jack, I said, patting the mule. I watched Mr. Morrison enter the side door. I thought of returning to my seat on the steps, but decided against it. Instead, I remained with Jack, thoughtfully digesting all I had heard until Mr. Morrison came from the house. He went into the barn, then reappeared with a planter, a plow-like tool with a small round container for dropping seeds attached to its middle. He put the planter into the back of the wagon. Where you going, Mr. Morrison? Down to Mr. Wiggins' place. I seen Mr. Wiggins this morning, and he asked to use Papa's planter. He ain't got no wagon, so I told him I'd ask your Papa, and if it was all right, I'd bring it to him. Ain't it kind of late for seeding? Well, not for what he got in mind. He thought he'd plant himself some summer corn. It'll be ready come September. Mr. Morrison, can I go with you? I asked as he climbed into the wagon. Well, I'd be right pleased for your company, Cassie, but you'll have to ask your mama. I ran back to the house. The boys were now in Mama and Papa's room, and when I asked if I could go up to Willie's with Mr. Morrison, Little Man and Christopher John, of course, wanted to go too. Mr. Morrison said it'll be all right, Mama. Well, don't you go get in his way. Stacy, you going? Stacy sat across from Papa, looking despondently at his broken leg. Go on, son, Papa said gently. There's nothing to do here. Give you a chance to talk to little Willie. You sure you ain't got nothing I could do for you, Papa? Just go and have yourself a good ride over to little Willie's. Since it had been my idea to ask to go, I claimed the seat beside Mr. Morrison, and the boys climbed in the back. Little Willie's family lived in their own 40 acres about 2 miles east of Great Faith. It was a fine morning for a ride, and the 6 miles there sped by quickly with Mr. Morrison singing in his basis of bass voices, and Christopher John, Little Man, and me joining wherever we could as we passed cotton fields abloom in flowers of white and red and pink. Stacy, being in one of his moods, did not sing, and we let him be. We stayed for less than an hour at the Wiggins farm, then headed home again. We had just passed Great Faith and were approaching the Jefferson Davis School Road when a ragged pickup came into view. Very quickly, Mr. Morrison said, Cassie, get in the back. But why, Mr. Do quick, Cassie, like I say. His voice was very above a friendly whisper, but there was an urgency in it, and I obeyed, scrambling over the seat to join the boys. Y'all stay down now. The truck braked noisily with the grating shriek of steel. We stopped. The boys and I peeked over the edge of the wagon. The truck had veered over the road, blocking us. The truck door swung open, and Caleb Wallace stepped out, pointing a long, condemning finger at Mr. Morrison. He swayed unspeaking for a long, terrible moment, then sputtered,
You big black nigger. I ought to cut your heart out for what you done. My brothers laid back like they is, and you still running around here free as a white man. Downright sinful. That's what it is. Why I ought to gun you down right where you sit. You gonna move your truck? Caleb Wallace gazed up at Mr. Morrison, then at the truck, as if trying to comprehend the connection between the two. That truck in your way, boy? You gonna move it? I'll move it all right when I get good and ready. He stopped abruptly, his eyes bulging in a terrified stare as Mr. Morrison climbed down from the wagon. Mr. Morrison's long shadow fell over him, and for a breathless second, Mr. Morrison towered dangerously near him. But as the fear grew white on Caleb Wallace's face, Mr. Morrison turned without a word and peered into the truck. "What's he looking for?" I whispered. "Probably a gun," said Stacy. Mr. Morrison circled the truck, studying it closely. Then he returned to its front, and bending at the knees with his back against the grill, he positioned his large hands beneath the bumper. Slowly, his muscles flexing tightly against his thin shirt and the sweat popping off his skin like oil on water, he lifted the truck in one fluid, powerful motion until the front was several inches off the ground, and slowly walked it to the left of the road, where he set it down as gently as a sleeping child. Then he moved to the rear of the truck and repeated the feat. Caleb Wallace was mute. Christopher John, little man, and I stared, open-mouthed, and even Stacy, who had witnessed Mr. Morrison's phenomenal strength before, gazed in wonder. It took Caleb Wallace several minutes to regain his voice. We were far down the road, almost out of hearing, when his frenzied cry of hate reached us. "One of these nights, you watch, nigger. I'm gonna come get you for what you done. You just watch. One night, real soon." When we reached home and told Mama and Papa and Big Mom what happened, Mama said to Mr. Morrison, I told you before I was afraid for you, and today Caleb Wallace could have hurt you and the children." Mr. Morrison looked squarely into Mama's eyes. "Miss Logan, Caleb Wallace is one of those folks who can't do nothing by himself. He got to have a lot of other folks backing him up, plus a loaded gun. And I knew there wasn't no gun. Leastways not in his truck. I checked." "But if you stay, he'll get somebody, and they'll try to take you like—" She stopped. "Miss Logan, don't ask me to go." Mama reached out, laying a slender hand on Mr. Morrison's. "Mr. Morrison, you're part of us now. I don't want you hurt because of us." Mr. Morrison lowered his eyes and looked around the room until his gaze rested on the boys and me. "I ain't never had no children of my own. I think sometimes if I had, I'd have wanted a son and a daughter just like you and Mr. Logan, and grandbabies just like these babies of yours." "But Mr. Morrison, the Wallaces—" "Mary," said Papa quietly, "let it be." Mama looked at Papa, her lips still poised to speak. Then she said no more, but the worry lines remained creased on her brow. August dawned, blue and hot. The heat swooped lower over the land, clinging like an invisible shroud, and through it people moved slowly, lethargically, as if underwater. In the ripening fields, the drying cotton and the corn stretched tiredly skyward, awaiting the coolness of a rain that occasionally threatened but did not come, and the land took on a baked brown look. To escape the heat, the boys and I often ambled into the coolness of the forest after the chores were done. There, while the cows and their calves grazed nearby, we sat on the banks of the pond, our backs propped against an old hickory or pine or walnut, our feet dangling lazily in the cool water, and waited for a watermelon bought from the garden to chill. Sometimes Jeremy joined us there, making his way through the deep forest land from his own farm over a mile away. But the meetings were never planned. None of our parents would have liked that. "How's your papa?" he asked one day as he plopped down beside us.
He's all right, said Stacy, excepting his legs bother him in the heat, itching a lot. But Mama says that's a sign it's getting well. That's good, murmured Jeremy. Too bad he had to get hurt when he done, so he couldn't go back on the railroad. Stacy stirred uneasily, looked at little man and me, reminding us with his eyes that we were not to speak about the Wallace's part in Papa's injury. And only, Jeremy remained silent a moment, then stuttered. So some folks saying they glad he got hurt. Glad he can't make that railroad money. Who said that? I cried, jumping up from the blank. Just tell me who said it, and I'll ramp. Cassie, sit down and be quiet, Stacy ordered. Reluctantly, I did as I was told, wishing that this business about the Wallaces and Papa's injuries were not so complex. It seemed to me that since the Wallaces had attacked Papa and Mr. Morrison, the simplest things to do would be to tell the sheriff and have them put in jail. But Mama said things didn't work that way. She explained that as long as the Wallaces, embarrassed by their injuries at the hands of Mr. Morrison, did not make an official complaint about the incident, then we must remain silent also. If we did not, Mr. Morrison could be charged with attacking white men, which could possibly end up in being sentenced to the change game. Or worse. I ain't the one said it, Cassie stammered Jeremy by way of apology. Well, whoever saying it, it ought not be, I said huffily. Jeremy nodded thoughtfully and changed the subject. Y'all seen TJ lately? Stacy frowned, considering whether or not he should answer. There had been much talk concerning TJ and the Sims brothers. All of it bad. Mo Turner's father had told Papa that TJ stopped with the Simses once, and after they had left, they had discovered his watch missing. The Laniers had the same experience with the locket. That TJ done turned real bad, Mr. Leonard had said, and I don't want nothing to do with no thief, especially no thief run around with white boys. Finally, Stacy said, don't see him much no more. Jeremy pulled at his lip. I see him all the time. Well, too bad, I sympathized. Stacy glanced reproachfully at me, then lay flat upon the ground, his head resting in the cushion of his hands, clasped under his head. It sure is beautiful up there, he said, pointedly changing the subject again. The rest of us lay back too. Overhead, the branches of the walnut and hickory trees met like long green fans sheltering us. Several feet away, the persistent sun made amber rows of shimmering sunlight upon the ponds. A stillness hovered in the high air, soft, quiet, peaceful. I think when I grow up, I'm going to build me a house and some trees and just live in there all the time, said Jeremy. How you going to do that? Asked little man. Oh, I'll find some real strong trees and just build. I figure I'll have the trunk of one tree in the bedroom and the other in the kitchen. How come you want to live in a tree for? Christopher John inquired. It's so peaceful up there and quiet. Cool, too, answered Jeremy, especially at night. How you know how cool it is at night? I said. Jeremy's face brightened. 'Cause I got my bedroom up there. We all looked at him unbelievingly. I do, really. Built it myself and I sleeps up there. Come these hot nights, I just climbs in my tree and it's like going into another world. Why, I can see and hear things up there I bet you only squirrels and birds can see and hear. Sometimes I think I can even see all the way over to y'all's place. Ah, shoot, boy, you a story, I said. Your place too far away and you know it. Jeremy's face dropped. Well, maybe I can't see it, but that don't keep me from pretending I do. He was silent a second, then hopped up suddenly, his face bright again. Hey, why don't y'all come over and see it? My pa's gonna be gone all day, and it'd be lots of fun. I could show y'all. No, said Stacy quietly, his eyes still on the trees overhead. Jeremy sat back down deflated. Just wanted y'all to see it, that's all. For a while, he looked hurt by Stacy's cold refusal. Then, seeming to accept it as part of things that were, he spoke up again. He again took up his position and volunteered good-naturedly. Well, if y'all ever get a chance to build yourselves a tree house, just let me know, and I'll help you. It's just as cool.